Welcome to our first episode in a new content series called Agency Stories, the Now, Next, and Future, the series that aims to get to the heart of challenges and opportunities faced by agencies in the now, next, and future. I am Jessica Cardonic, VP of Product Marketing at Adverity, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Jon Clarke, VP of Global Technology Solutions at Transmission. Thank you, Jon, for joining me today. Would you mind just giving us a little bit of an introduction on yourself and providing a bit of a background on Transmission as well for our audience?
Yeah, sure. And thank you very much for the invite. It's great to be here. So yeah, a little bit about me and my background. I've been in B2B marketing one way or another for the last 28 years. And interestingly, sort of client side, agency side a couple of times and vendor side. So kind of got the three different perspectives really of all things B2B. Run a bunch of companies, founded and kind of sold, exited and merged some companies. And most recently, after my last business that I co-founded, which was a B2B intent platform from a company called Cyance, I joined Transmission about 2 years ago, really to head up their global service innovation strategy. And it's been a real whirlwind, and there's a lot going on, lots of really cool, exciting stuff, some of which we'll tell you about today.
Great. Thank you for that intro. Really, really appreciate it. So let's get into it. So my first question is focused sort of on the now, around the current state of the agency landscape. It seems that, over the past several years, there really hasn't been kind of a stable business as usual year. It seems that there's been one challenge or hurdle after the next. Things that come to my mind are obviously COVID and the adapting to the post-pandemic world, the tightening economy, managing increasing client expectations, obviously navigating the end of third-party cookies, and then the AI frenzy. From your perspective, what does the current state of the agency landscape look like, and how is it evolving?
I think you're absolutely right. There's a huge amount of change going on, a lot of headwinds that agencies and also our clients are faced with. And you've touched on some of those key points there. I think that post-COVID, the economic headwinds are huge. We've moved away, particularly in the tech space, high growth markets, from growth at any cost to growing profitably at any cost. And that's really down to the economic climate, the fact that there's a huge amount of pressure on budgets. And as we always know, marketing budget, right, is quite often the first one that's looked at, incorrectly, in my view, because I believe that you need to be doubling down on, where your best customers are, where your future customers are, and really driving efficiency in terms of how you grow, because businesses still need to grow. It's just that I think the mindset's changed now, and it's because of the economic climate. Organizations need to think about efficiency and profitability, the bottom line. So it's really a challenge for agencies to demonstrate to their clients and to the market how they can help their clients to achieve that. A big part of that is technology. It's how you drive efficiency into how you go to market. All things across the whole spectrum of, you're creating a really strong brand, building awareness around your brand, creating the right perceptions, and right through to creating demand off the back of that. I think, technology has a huge role to play, driving efficiency in terms of what we can automate, what we can improve, but also how you blend together the kind of creativity that you get from humans, but how you can then leverage technology to do the things that move the needle in the right direction, in a more automated, more scalable way. And I think that, those things combined are really providing a challenge for the market in B2B to really get to grips with and grapple. And quite often what we find is that, clients' teams are so busy in the day-to-day in doing what they need to do that they often need help. And they don't know what they don't know as well, or they understand what the North Star looks like, but they find it difficult to execute. So I think there's, out of every challenge, there's always opportunity, and I think that's where the opportunity lies for B2B agencies right now.
you mentioned one thing around, proving kind of the value of what you're doing, and also the need to sort of build brand. I'd be curious to understand a little bit around how you're helping clients sort of manage the balance between the need to have immediate impact on revenue, versus kind of the long game and building brand, which really won't have a short-term impact on sales. This is certainly a challenge for us in marketing. So I would love, I'd be curious to get your perspective here. Is it about educating other parts of the business on the importance of sort of that demand creation element versus strictly focusing on kind of capturing the current demand? Since most buyers aren't in market, I would just love to just hear a little bit of your perspective there.
Yeah, sure. And I think it's a really good point. We firmly believe at Transmission that, you've got to understand who's in market and who's not to address that challenge. So we roughly see sort of a 95-5% split. I think that stat is well used in the marketplace. Kind of look
Yes.
at the kind of Les Binet, research, etc., from the B2B Institute and stuff like that. And we've actually stress test that thinking and came out with a similar. It's a model, right? So it's a rough guide. You don't have to kind of take it literally, but it's about right. And I certainly, in my previous company that I founded, which was a B2B intent platform, that's what we did, right? And we were there to surface the in-market accounts that matched your ideal customer profile using intent signals. And we did roughly see somewhere around kind of 3 to 5% as an average. And that's where you need to double down on and focus in order to get the earlier success that keeps everybody bought in, that enables you to feed sales with opportunity and drive quicker results, right? Because the rest of the market, the 95%, that's also important, but they're not in market right now. So that's about doubling down on, building awareness, making sure you're enforcing the right perceptions, because they will come in market at some point. It's just you don't know when.
Yeah.
So doing both at the same time is just as important. And it also gives you a bit of breathing space to be able to keep everybody inside your organization on board, because people are under pressure. They've got to hit quota, they've got to hit target, and you can't ignore that. But at the same time, it's about delivering sustainable, repeatable growth. And so focusing on the 5% and the 95% in different ways, right? 5% is all about the here and now. What are they interested in? What are their needs and wants? And how can you align your messaging, your content, your value propositions to what they need right now in market, and deal with that. And surrounding the buying group is super important. Getting there ahead of the competition also. We've seen that when our clients do that really effectively, and when we enable them to do that, their conversion to revenue can increase by as much as 70%. But the downside with just focusing on that 5% is you can hit a glass ceiling really quickly, and all your competition are going to be doing the same. So also doubling down on the 95%, but taking a different approach, thinking about how you can, think about creating thought leadership content. You really position your brand in the most positive light, so that when they do start a buying journey, they're going to think of you. They're more likely to engage with you. You get that right balance of being able to deliver more sustainable growth, because you can grow as much of the 5% and the 95% over a more sustainable basis.
I appreciate that explanation. That's super helpful, and I'm sure really useful context for our audience as well. Because it's definitely a balance, right? And you can't just focus on the short term. What do you think is driving change, and sort of what are the challenges that agencies or brands are facing? You've already kind of covered the challenge, but what would you say kind of are the main drivers of change there?
Well, I think as we said earlier, the economic headwinds are huge and massive. If you think pre-COVID, particularly in high growth categories, tech, for example, I saw, and I think we've all seen, some crazy valuations of businesses that were growing at the top line, seemingly. They were getting some 10x, sometimes 20x valuations, which just nuts, right? And that was fine at the time. And I was in a company that was private equity backed, that the whole pressure was on top line growth. Your valuation of your business was based upon how much revenue you're growing by month in, month out, which is fine when everyone's in a growth mode. But when things become tough like they are now, that's when you kind of start to work out, well, who's got a sustainable business model and who hasn't. And there's been a ton of vaporware out there in terms of companies that have, disappeared really, or been absorbed by other larger organizations because they've not been growing profitably.
Mm-hmm.
And now valuations and market capitalization is much more realistic because of the economic climate. And so what organizations now need to do to be successful in a market like this is to really focus on efficiency and driving growth that is profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And so all the things that we've already been talking about so far are super important. It's about proving the value that your go-to-market teams can deliver to the bottom line. And so focusing on, what marketing effort is most likely to drive sustainable opportunity
Mm-hmm.
and reduce the cost of acquiring customers at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Also looking beyond acquisition, thinking about customer lifetime value.
Mm-hmm.
Some, metrics that I know a lot of business leaders look at that outside of marketing is CAC LTV, so customer acquisition costs
Mm-hmm.
and customer lifetime value. As a rule of thumb, if you can prove that marketing or the go-to-market teams are enabling the business to generate kind of 3 times more customer revenues than it costs to win a customer, you've got an operationally efficient business.
Mm-hmm.
But quite often marketing teams, marketing leaders don't necessarily always think in that way. And
Mm-hmm.
if they don't, then they need to be obsessed about those kind of metrics, because by proving the impact that your go-to-market strategy is having upon those metrics, it
Mm-hmm.
demonstrates to the leadership team that your business is sustainable, it's
Mm-hmm.
profitable, it's efficient. And it's then all about, when you've got that model right, well, how do you put more fuel in the fire to kind of just grow faster? Because you're going to be in good shape.
Yep.
So I think it's really important in that climate now to do that. And, as we said, part of that is about doubling down on, where your high costs are in your demand funnel.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at, how much does it cost to convert a lead into an MQL, an MQL into an SQL?
Mm-hmm.
How much of that activity ends up contributing towards revenue, and then look to optimize it. And if you get that bit right, you're going to be on the right track to achieving those goals. But you've got to be able to measure effectively as well. And so technology plays a key part in how you do that.
Would you say, obviously, technology plays a huge role in driving efficiency. In terms of kind of the evolution and adoption of AI, where, are your teams already kind of leveraging AI in some of the, in different areas from a marketing perspective? I'd be curious to understand like where you think the biggest opportunity is from, an efficiency gains perspective there.
I think we're in the relatively early stages, but it's evolving so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been kind of interesting to see that, because kind of AI, machine learning, it's been around for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems to have really exploded in the last, I guess, 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing a whole ton of new apps, new companies that are just AI based, in every part of our lives. I think if you go onto TikTok, onto Instagram now, you're just
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by new AI tools about
Mm-hmm.
kind of Gen AI, and it's the same in B2B. And there's the obvious ones, and we've created a sort of an AI working group that globally across our agency, headed up by our CEO, to really double down on understanding, well, where are these opportunities? And there's the obvious ones, right? But we've got a whole list of ideas that we're working through and prioritizing to kind of work out, well, what's going to move the needle the most, make the biggest difference for our clients. And yeah, the obvious ones are creating content, and that's great. But the things that I think are going to be really significant are where we are looking at AI to help crunch through large volumes of data, around discovering audiences
Mm-hmm.
that are going to be a really good fit for our clients. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter whether they are thinking about doing some brand work
Mm-hmm.
or creating some ABM programs
Mm-hmm.
or delivering broader demand generation, or in fact, if
Mm-hmm.
they're doing all three.
Yeah.
There's some really cool AI tools out now that help you to just do the kind of research around target markets,
Mm-hmm.
personas, doing it in a much smarter technology, AI-driven way that
Yep.
gets you there much quicker.
I mean,
And
it's a really heavy lift, right? If you're, doing it on your own.
exactly, exactly. And for me, look, there's always the threat of, well, is it going to take jobs away? To some extent, the reality is yes. But it's actually, from, I think the way that Transmission are looking at it is about how we can blend together human
Mm-hmm.
creativity with
Mm-hmm.
AI. And it's not purely just an AI-driven strategy. It's about bringing the two together. And we've got a concept that we
Yeah.
call applied intelligence, which is
Mm-hmm.
exactly that. It's about bringing the benefit of AI technologies with human creativity to deliver outstanding value to our clients.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're really excited about all of that, and picking up signals that you can then, once you've identified, the organization's most likely to convert,
Mm-hmm.
and then starting to use that to personalize experiences through campaigns. Doesn't matter whether it's brand, ABM, or demand. It all helps to move the needle in the right direction.
And with AI, I mean, I think it's sort of a balance. Like, we've seen, there's that fear of AI taking jobs away, but we're sort of looking at it as sort of helping to enhance our roles and free up time so that we can focus on kind of higher value, more strategic things. And having that kind of, being able to use technology for that purpose. So we're not really, looking at it as kind of, taking jobs away, but really kind of helping us do better, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, let's move on to sort of the next now. Looking at the next 18 months, what do you think that holds for the industry, and how can agencies help brands cut through the noise and also drive change?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things I think are here and now and on
Mm-hmm.
the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that is evolving quite rapidly now is enhanced data privacy laws that
Yeah.
for those of you that are kind of up to speed with this, you'll all be familiar with it. But for those of you that are not, in Europe, the Digital Markets Act, the DMA, introduced consent-based restrictions and laws that are really going to hit the kind of, and have hit the sort of the big sort of social community platforms. So, advertising platforms like Google, Meta, LinkedIn, for example. And what that means is now that, you've got to have consent from the audiences that you upload into those platforms or use within those platforms in order to advertise to them, in order to then also to track who's engaging and who's not, and that's significant. I think the UK is due to follow with something similar, and it's going through the motions in the US as
Mm-hmm.
well. And the kind of thinking is that at least some states in the US will be adopting an equivalent of the DMA in the next, I don't know, 6 to 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, getting to grips with that and understanding what that means, I think is very significant, because, we're bigger brands with big markets, big total addressable markets, have been very used to historically in having, kind of large digital audiences that they can activate across different campaigns and different platforms. And that's going to be much harder going forward. Building consent takes time, and, means that you've got to think about, well, how's that going to impact on our go-to-market goals? How are we going to fuel growth if our audiences are going to be much smaller, and we need to earn the right to build consent
Mm-hmm.
across our addressable market over time? So that's a significant one for me. And we've been working with our partners like LinkedIn, Meta, and Google for some time now around how we enable our clients to do that. And we think we've got a really good solution. But it also means that the measurement around this is super important, because it's going to force organizations to think slightly differently about less is more, about
Mm-hmm.
quality over quantity. And that's playing back into what we've been talking about,
Yep.
efficiency, right? It means that, if audiences are going to consent to engage with you, that's a signal, that's great. But actually, what other signals are really prevalent when we are engaging with those audiences that help us to determine what signals are more likely to convert to revenue, and
Mm-hmm.
how can we optimize that? And I think if organizations who are forced to deal with the first party issue
Mhm.
also double down on the measurement piece around those signals that convert to revenue. They'll also drive efficiency into what they do, and they'll get, a better return on advertising spend. They'll get better marketing spend to revenue efficiencies. They'll reduce the CAC.
Mhm.
All of these things are super important, I think, going forward. So measurement is also really, really important going forward. Not just measuring everything, but measuring the things that matter most.
Now that makes sense. I mean, obviously, the businesses that move on all of these things the quickest are going to have an advantage, but they're huge areas to tackle. I mean, how, each of these initiatives, when you think about just, data privacy itself is, requires different expertise. How are you prioritizing all of these things?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're having to build teams internally
Yeah.
that have the right skill set, the right experience, because that's
Mhm.
not necessarily something that, GDPR has been around for a while, right? So
Right.
it's not new, but this is just the direction of travel is going in this direction and is
Mhm.
continuing to be so. So you can't swim against the tide. You've got to go with it, and therefore investing in the right kind of technical skills around information security, data compliance.
Mhm.
We've been doing that for some time, and I think that's super important.
Yep.
But also being able to engage with the information security teams within our clients, right? Because we all
Mhm.
know they're super paranoid sometimes, very protective of their own data, rightly
Yeah.
so. But if you're going to get that efficiency piece and also the compliance piece right, you've
Mhm.
ultimately got to be able to link through to revenue, which is quite often
Mhm.
means you've got to integrate into the client CRM, and that's
Yep.
tough. That's a heavy lift. So getting that right is not easy, but it is
Mhm.
very doable. And we're working with a bunch of vendors who have been wrestling with this challenge for some time and have got a really good solution. LinkedIn, with Google and Meta and
Mhm.
other vendors like that. They've been working on ways and means to try and make it easier for brands
Mhm.
to invest in this type of approach and to enable aggregated, anonymized CRM sales data available so that they can get the measurement piece. So it's a value
Mhm.
exchange
Yep. Okay.
without giving away anything that's too sensitive.
My next question is around challenges, which you've already sort of covered in terms of, what challenges you see coming up for agencies when they're servicing clients. You just talked about data privacy, InfoSec. Is there anything else that you think, is worth highlighting, from a challenges perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's about, I predict that agencies will continue to become more technology centric.
Yeah.
And, that's a challenge in itself because it does require different skill set. It does
Mhm.
require people with different experiences. Having gone from agency to founding SaaS tech companies and then going back into agency
Mhm.
world, it's, on a personal level, it's just helped me to realize that, quite often in agencies and the people that you get in it, there's a slightly
Mhm.
different mindset, slightly different
Yeah.
experiences. I'm not saying one is, better than the other. It's just different, right?
Mhm.
But I see that there's a kind of a natural convergence of some of what makes up a kind of tech company and an
Mhm.
agency coming together in order to take on the challenges, the headwinds, and address them and help clients to be able to, move forward in the right way. And I think agencies are really important. They play a super important role for clients to be able
Mhm.
to do that.
Mhm.
They often have some of the best creative minds, and it's very difficult for clients to attract that type of resource and skill
Yeah,
set
for
in their
sure.
own organizations, and that's why they outsource to agencies. I
Mhm.
think they're going to need to continue to do that with a different type of skill set. So things like data science,
Mhm.
technology solution designers and architects, machine learning, AI experts. These are kind of people that we have within transmission
Mhm.
that are going to be continuously important for our clients
Yeah.
because doing it themselves, yes, there will be some that will in-house it and do it really well, but I
Mhm.
suspect the vast majority will really struggle.
Yeah, and they'll be looking for guidance. So really the agency role will shift over the next several years, really, from what it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the conversations that we're having now, with our clients is around how do you prove the value that marketing contributes to that bottom line, into the metrics, the optics that the leadership team, the CEO, the CFO cares about them. And so being able to package up how all of this tech, all of the the marketing go-to-market strategy can all be invested in and delivered effectively to deliver on those metrics, those optics that the CEO, CFO obsess about on a daily basis. Now more than ever, that is so important. And so having that understanding, that skill set to be able to work out how to do that, how to deliver agency services and package them up that clients can invest in, but also supporting them with, communicating out to their leadership team how this is going to work, how it's going to move the needle in the right way sufficiently around those metrics you care about most, and therefore encourage them to invest in these kind of initiatives going forward. I think that's not always a skill set that exists right now in many agencies because they've never had to do it before.
If looking into the future, what, if any, lessons from the past that marketers should really pay attention to as we move towards the age of AI and beyond? I think you covered some of these, but would love to get, additional perspective from you there.
Yeah, well, I think the one thing I always keep coming back to, and I have this conversation a lot, with our clients and with our global teams internally, where they're saying, wow, this technology is exciting, is that, I've been in and around marketing, advertising technology for a long time, and I guess I'm not alone here that we've often seen organizations invest in technology and almost look at it as a silver bullet and say, well, let's buy this marketing automation platform or this CRM or this advertising platform or this measurement tool. It's going to solve all the problems we have, right? And guess what? It doesn't. And then they move to the next one and the next one, and there's this kind of merry-go-round that happens every 12 to 18 months, whatever the cycle is. But nothing really changes significantly. And I think that's still the case today. Yeah, the technologies may become more sophisticated. They may be easier to plug into your tech stack. It may be a better user experience, and all of that is really important. But it's you still can't forget about, you've got to have a great marketing strategy. You've got to have really good people who can help build that strategy, who can, align across your go-to-market teams, so that, it's not just marketing on its own, it's marketing working with business development, working with sales, working with customer success. In order to drive those revenue goals, that profitability outcome, that's super important. And that requires humans, right? And that requires people to come together and have a really good strategy, but also to execute well at the same time. And there's no excuse for poor marketing, right? If your brand isn't, really engaging, really compelling to your market, if you don't have great product, or you're not able to communicate the effectiveness of your product, if you can't build really kind of relevant value propositions that are going to attract your market to you and encourage them to engage and to buy from you and to remain customers as well for the long haul, you're going to struggle as a business. And I think that's super important. It's not about the technology. It's about bringing the two together. And that's why, as I've mentioned before, why we've got this applied intelligence concept transmission, because we think that bringing those two things together are vital to being successful.
Thank you. Really, really appreciate that insight there. I think that about covers it for today. We really, really appreciate your time. Yeah, thank you so much, Jon.
You're welcome. Thank you.